Hi, welcome to Farmer Stress and Mental Health Awareness, recognizing, responding, and accessing resources. My name is Leanne Porter. I'm with Farm First. My colleague, Karen Crawley, also with Farm First, and I developed this training with the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources in their Mass Grown Wellness program. First, I'm going to tell you about something that we're doing in Vermont. We're developing a peer network. Sometimes farmers need someone to talk to who understands what they're going through. There are times when only other farmers would get it. So we started a farmer peer network. And what we did was we trained farmers on the basis of core resources available that will help farmers. We train in how to offer non-judgmental active listening that helps others feel heard and reduces their stress. And we train them in many other factors as well. And we recruit peers from all corners of the state, from all types of farms. And then we begin with a community event. The reason I'm telling you about this peer network is because Massachusetts is about to start to develop a peer network of their own. So you'll learn more information about that through the MDARS website, which we will share at the end of this webinar. So to start with the basics, what is stressful as a farmer? Now, I know if farmers are listening to this webinar right now, they are well aware of what's stressful, and we don't need to teach you that aspect. But we like to pair it with what are some farmer strengths. And we like to think about what is different for farmers and how their strengths could help manage the stressors. So what is different for farmers than people in other professions? We ask this question at our workshops, and these are some of the responses we've had. People tended to answer the stress question first, and weather and financial issues or related to financial issues, stressors come up the most often. Other things that were mentioned here, supply chain issues, no rest, they have no help on the farm, making money is one of the financial issues, succession planning, unforeseen equipment repairs, and the list goes on. Some farmer strengths that were mentioned, tenacity, persistence, great work ethic. Farmers are thinkers, and they're good at financial management, even though that's a stressor. And they're hardworking. A few others from another group of participants. Again, financial stress, again, weather, changes in market, staffing issues. And as far as strengths, resiliency is a great strength, and we'll talk more about resilience. I'm going to share this video with you that just introduces trauma into the stress. So, stress. Stress is a type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. Stress is your body's response to anything that requires attention or action. So it's your body's response to a stressor. And stress is not inherently a bad thing. We need some stress to keep us alert and stimulated, and we need a stress response to react to situations in a self-productive manner. That's where fight, flight, or freeze come in. We also talk about flock in the agricultural communities. So this model shows that an optimal level of stress equals good performance, a higher level of performance. On the left, we have boredom or apathy. And farmers always laugh at that term boredom because farmers don't usually become bored. But if you have low stress, you're not performing at an optimal level. And if you have high anxiety on the other side, you're not performing at an optimal level. So everybody's different. Everybody's stress responses are different. But to perform at an optimal level, you'll be the most productive if you have some stress, but not too much. Chronic stress is a very important term. A chronic stress response is a consistent sense of feeling pressure and overwhelm, and it takes place over a period of time. Symptoms might include things like aches and pains, insomnia, weakness, less socialization, unfocused thinking, anything that's a change in behavior or physical attributes. How do you know when farmers are under too much stress? And then what can we do about it? Here are some warning signs of stress on the farm. Again, it's around changes in emotions, such as reduced energy for the future, anxiety, loss of spirit, depression, loss of sense of humor, to name a few. Changes in attitude and cognitive skills, such as becoming frequently critical or agitated when they weren't critical or agitated before, lack of concentration, and trouble making decisions. Or you might see changes in behavior. People might become quieter than usual. They may have trouble sleeping. They may not join friends or families for activities. They might start to miss deadlines. And a big one is changes on the farm operations. If we notice reduced care given to animals, machinery, or fields, or to the farmers themselves, and also increased accidents, those are all things that are really signs that something isn't quite right. So why do some people, especially farmers, open up and others do not? What variables might come into play? We asked this question at a training for peers, and they had a lot more answers than this, but these were the top 4. They felt like some of the variables included embarrassment, vulnerability, stigma, and shame. And then on the other side of that, how do you know if you're in a safe place to open up? How does that person show you? Here are some things that the farmer peers said in a training. They thought that non-aggressive body language is really important. If someone's being attentive, if they are being open, if they're using eye contact well, what they say to you will tell you you're in a safe place to open up, and that may vary per person. What you want to be told that will help you open up may be different for somebody else. Lack of anger and defensiveness, smiling and engagement, and not removing themselves. People often behave in a distracted manner or walk away, get frustrated and walk away, things like that. So now we're going to talk about de-escalation, and we're going to give you some suggestions for de-escalating yourself when you're feeling a lot of anxiety. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can help others regulate when you are talking with them. So here are some suggestions for de-escalation. Recognize how you're responding. Notice in yourself if you are being agitated. Find the trigger. So this is the why you are becoming agitated. Learn about your triggers. Are you getting frustrated about the same types of things often? Are you getting frustrated about things more than usual? Figure out what those triggers are and then see what can be done with them. Then we suggest a body check. How and where is your body reacting to the stressor? And focus on reducing tension there. Some people find that when they're stressed, their stomach hurts, or their chest feels tight, or their neck is tight. If you're feeling stress in a certain part of your body and you take a minute to notice and stretch in that particular area, it will go a long way, because remember that stress is your body's reaction. So what's happening in your body is really what to focus on first, so that you can calm down and then use your thinking to solve the problem. Next, we do a mind check. Consider the story you're telling yourself and find the truth in the situation. We often sort of spin our stories when we're stressed. We start piling on all kinds of other problems and scenarios that may or may not be true. So check in with yourself. Is this a real threat? Is it something that can be taken care of quickly? Or are you bringing in too many other issues to surround this one issue? Realize that your response is a choice. Now, we're not talking about that fight, flight, or freeze response, because that isn't a choice. That's not a thought out. That's not a time where you can think something out. Your body's responding quickly and without thought. But in a typical situation where you're not being threatened, you can be calm enough to realize that you can choose to not respond, or you can choose to respond in various ways. Always breathing. Breathing helps reduce stress in any way, shape, or form. So take a couple of breaths. If you can, take a break from the situation and then go back to it later. And then lastly, ask for help. That's one that we really encourage. And that's why MDAR is creating the supports they are, and including the peer network, because they feel like, farmers really need to start asking for support. A couple of other tips. Try not to feel bad or guilty about being escalated, and concentrate on calming down. Guilt or feeling bad about it will only escalate you more. If you're having conflict with somebody else, try not to focus on who's right or wrong, but what you might do moving forward. Try to focus on one situation or problem at a time. Tell yourself that you'll think about the rest of it another time. That's sort of what we were talking about a minute ago about your mind check. Think about what went well when self-regulating. Consider what strategies you might use in the future. If you're talking with an escalated person, consider the following de-escalation chart. So this is a chart that is very similar to what we just went over, but this is about talking to somebody else who is escalated. A lot of the strategies are the same, so I'm going to send you an electronic copy of this if you send your email in. So we won't go over it each piece, because we just went over very similar things, except for things like listen more than you talk, allow the person to vent, show empathy, try not to take it personally, avoid the need to be right or fix it right away. Now we're going to switch gears a bit and talk about resiliency. Resiliency is the capacity to thrive individually or collectively in the face of adversity. Resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. So resiliency is your capacity to thrive when things are hard. A number of factors contribute to how well people adapt to adversities. Some things include the ways in which individuals view and engage with the world, the availability and quality of social resources, and specific coping strategies. Psychological research demonstrates that the resources and skills associated with more positive adaptation, meaning greater resilience, can be cultivated and practiced. We'll talk about that more later. So here are some tools for resilience. Social connection. The more you're connected to the others, the more support you have, the more resilient you are. Flexible thinking, optimism, self-care is very important. And what else? We encourage you to think of some of your own tools, some of your resilient attributes. And it's important to note that resilience tools can be learned and practiced and developed and enhanced and taught. So all of those things like flexible thinking, for example, you can teach yourself or be taught by someone else to think more flexibly, and that will increase your resilience. That's one of many examples. So here is a chart that we created that brings it together in thinking about the past, the present, and the future, your resilient thinking, your emotional resilience, and your social resilience. So for example, past resilient thinking would be, I made mistakes, but I'm okay. And I've always been able to figure things out. In the past, emotional resilience might look like, I've been hurt, but I've recovered. Social resilience might look like, my friends have always been there for me. Talking about resilience in the present, resilient thinking would be, what are my options in this situation? Emotional resilience would be, it's okay to feel sad or angry. I'm okay, even though I have these feelings. Social resilience would be, I know who to call when I need support. We encourage people to have those lists around and in their minds and even on paper. Who do you call when you need support? And future resilient thinking might be, I will remember what worked for next time this happens. Future emotional resilience might sound like, I know I will feel better soon, brighter days are ahead. And future social resilience could be, I know that I need to continue to build relationships. So in live workshops, we hand this out and we encourage participants to come up with more ideas under all these categories. So here is a resilience tool that's a proactive approach. I can also send you an electronic copy of this tool if you supply me with your email address. This is something you can do on your own, or you could do it with someone else or help someone else fill it out. It's a chart where you list a challenge and then you answer a bunch of questions. You can answer them all or just a few, but it starts with your belief system. Is this challenge a threat or an opportunity? And why is it one or the other? And sometimes people fill this out and say it's both and explain why it could be both. What strengths do we bring to addressing this challenge? What can we do to become or remain hopeful and optimistic? And then there's a place for you to write in a vision for short term and a vision for long term. And then the learning, change, growth needed to support your visions, short-term steps towards your dreams, and which family, friends, professionals, or community organizations can provide support to your vision or dream. And offers you the opportunity to think about risk management strategies and what it will look like when you move forward with mutual support, teamwork, and commitment for each other. This question and some of the others are around farm family resilience. And there's also a sheet that's separate for just an individual farmer, and I can send you both. Communication and problem solving process. What can we do to support clear, consistent information sharing? And what can we do to provide an environment open to sharing our values, meaning, and feelings about the challenge? And there's more questions about setbacks, the process you can put in place for decision making, and ways to brainstorm new ideas or new resources to help. So that is a tool that we can send you that's pretty handy. And now we're going to switch over and talk about active listening components. So when you're listening to somebody and you really want to help, there are some components that really work. You don't have to always think about every one of them, but there are some tips and strategies that are important to know. The first one is pay attention, listen carefully, don't interrupt, use eye contact, all of those things that were mentioned earlier in this webinar. Withhold judgment is really important. It's hard sometimes not to judge. Then the next three are reflect, clarify, and summarize. So the reflection is really thinking about what you heard. And then if you have questions, things that you didn't understand about what you heard, ask clarifying questions. And then summarize back to the person what you think you heard to make sure you said it right. And the important piece of this is number 6 is share. Don't jump to the advice part and give advice or ideas or things like that until you've had the opportunity to pay attention, reflect, and all of these other steps. I'm going to show you an example of what not to do. This is a little bit of comic relief during your webinar.
It's just, there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail out.
I'm not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Oh,
come on. If you would just
don't.
For the final portion of this webinar, we are going to talk about resources. Recognizing, responding, and accessing resources. The most important resource that you need to be aware of is the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture Community Health and Wellness Program. This is where you'll find all of the tools that we discussed today and more information. This is what the website looks like. You'll find it at mass.gov/Massachusetts Agricultural Community Mental Health and Wellness, but you can start with mass.gov. You'll find state and national resources. You'll find training opportunities. You'll find a crisis line. This website is being updated constantly, so check back and you'll find a lot of new resources. The other website I'd like you to look at is the Farm First website. There's a lot of similar resources here, and yes, they are for Vermont at this time, but you'll find a lot of articles, and information, and you'll find some information about the peer program, which we discussed earlier, which is happening in Vermont and will happen in Massachusetts. So if you want to learn more about what that looks like, you can go to farmfirst.org. We have self-assessments, so does the Massachusetts site, though. There's the peer support group and other information. This is from the University of Delaware. It's called Building Farm and Family Resilience. It is a fantastic website and a fantastic manual that you can find there about farm community resilience. I highly recommend you check that one out. This is what their website looks like. As you can see, there's a lot of information. And then lastly, the Farmer Resource Network is a free search tool that can be used to find organizations and resources around farming and agricultural services. These guides that are there are fantastic. They've been written by the Resources Working Group for the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. You'll find a manual on financial crisis, disaster and disaster assistance, farm stress and emotional well-being, and more. I've also included in your tools some articles on active listening and other things of interest. So the Farmer Resource Network, what that looks like if you go to their website, it's a free search tool, like I said, that can be used to find organizations and resources. And this is how you find resources. You put in what best describes you, search for resources within the state. You fill out these fields and it directs you to resources about your inquiry, lots of articles and maybe some other media resources. So that's another place you can go. Again, these are the manuals. This is the mental farm stress and emotional well-being manual. As you can see, by the table of contents, there is a lot there. And this is part 1 of 2. So I highly recommend checking out those manuals. So if you email me, leanneP@farmfirst.org, I will send you a survey about this short webinar. And then I will also send you lots of resources, including this full PowerPoint presentation. So thank you so much for joining. I appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your day to watch this webinar. And please let us know if you'd like more information. Thank you.